On and announce the beginning of the call. Welcome, everybody. It's Monday, November the 1st, 2021. Oh, wow, new people have arrived. I'm so happy to see you, Vega and Francesca and Fumiko and Beth and Jerry and Shyla and Jennifer and Stephen and there was something blocking your face there, and Aiko and Stephen. How wonderful. And Sterling and Deborah.
Yeah.
Maureen. I'm glad you're
So
here.
maybe we'll start the call, sweetie.
Yeah.
Today is here on the east side of the timeline. We are on Monday the 1st of November, and welcome to our call.
Yeah. Today we're going to be taking a little journey together from what we were covering last week, feelings awareness, and we're going to open up to needs consciousness. So it's going to be kind of a combination of exploring two of the skills on the matrix. And I also wanted to let you know a couple of things before we dive in to the call. If you notice on your screen, it says we're streaming live to YouTube. And that doesn't mean we're actually streaming live to YouTube, because it's going into a private setting. So nobody can see what we're doing there on YouTube. It's just so that we have a backup recording in case something goes screwy on my computer. And so it's just a way of having a backup. And then—
So it's not intended to be public in any way. Is that what you're saying, Jim?
Yeah, it's private, right? Even though it says we're streaming to YouTube live. And then people ask every week where they can see the recordings. I'm almost caught up with the recordings. In fact, the ones from the last 3 weeks are up there now at pathways-to-liberation.com resources, and I put that link in the chat. So today, Jory, I think you're going to do the self-connection exercise. Is that still on tap?
Yep, I need it more than anybody else here today, I think. So that would be great. I do this as much for myself as is for you. And I want to share this as something that I'm actually doing a self-connection exercise that I experienced earlier today with two of our certification candidates, Joe Hauska and Celia, her last name
Landman, Celia Landman.
Thank you. So this was a self-connection exercise that was led that I enjoyed earlier today, and I would like to support you in enjoying it, or at least experiencing it and deciding for yourself if you enjoy it. So this is an opportunity to just have some connection with your own experience and to just be present to this very moment. And it starts with an opportunity to soothe your vagus nerve. Start to just massage your ears gently. Just to feel what it feels like there. Just putting your attention on that experience. And then taking your hands and put them over your eyes. Just being present to your direct experience right here, right now. And then moving your hands onto your cheeks, just resting your face in your palms. Just feeling what that feels like to just rest your face right here, right now. Take a breath. And then taking your palms and putting them over your heart. Just see if you can feel your heartbeat. And then allow your hands to move down to your belly at your navel, either overlapping your hands or just next to each other, just to rest your hands at your navel and breathe into that. And then allow your hands to come down with your palms up on your lap. Just allowing yourself to release whatever is ready to go. And allow yourself to receive the support from the cosmos, just letting it come into you as you breathe in and out. And then we'll go through that more quickly this time, one more time. To come back up and massage your ears. Just rubbing your ears. And then putting your hands over your eyes. And then from your eyes down to your cheeks, just resting your face in your palms. And then taking your palms over your heart. And then your hands on your belly at the navel. Again, either overlapping or beside each other. Just allowing you to just touch your navel with your hands. And then allow your hands to just slide down onto your lap and release whatever's ready to go. And receive whatever support is offered from the cosmos to you right now. And then taking a deep breath and coming back into this community. Your eyes are closed, you can allow them to open. And you'll find yourself in a group and you'll have an opportunity to share just how this was for you. to do this self-connection exercise. And have one person speak at a time. So one person speaking, everybody listens. Jim, how much time will they have? You're muted.
Yep, I've got it set up for 9 minutes, plus there'll be 2 minutes to allow for, moving people around if I need to and so forth. So it'll be a total of 11 minutes, but everybody should have about 3 minutes to express and 6 minutes to
Thank
listen.
you. Thank you. And so have one person be a timekeeper so that we make sure everybody has the 3 minutes. And then if there's anything else to add, there'll be a couple minutes at the end. All
And
right.
great. And Siva, I'll try to, I didn't get your request for who you wanted to be with, so we'll try to do it for the next breakout. Nothing came in to me, so we'll try it again later. But we'll see everybody back here in 11 minutes. And again, it might take us a minute just to get everything straightened out here. I'll work on that as quickly as we can.
Mhm.
Those of you who are still stuck here with us, I'm working to make a room for you.
Jim, if you made me a host, I could help.
I did, but it went away for some reason. I got it. I'll do that again in a second.
Okay.
I can finish this right now.
Yeah, good.
See how many mistakes I can make.
Good, and I don't have to take responsibility for any of them. I'm not doing it. There's a benefit there.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah, Joy, and there goes Sarah. Not yet. There we go.
Turn
Yeah,
the screen back
yeah.
on. Welcome everybody back. Joy?
Yeah, so I wonder if there's anyone who has any kind of harvest of Jim. Actually, my brain is so fuzzy. How about you just pick this up from here?
You betcha. So anybody like to share anything in the large group? Anything from your experience with your new friends that you've had a chance to hang out with? Anything that you'd like to share with everybody here? You can just raise your hand. If you don't know how to raise your hand, you can do that by going down the bottom of your screen. There's a bunch of little buttons down there, and you click on the reaction, and that'll open up a little menu. And then you can see there, one of them says raise hand, and then you'll end up looking like Siva does up there in the upper left-hand corner. Go ahead, Siva.
In general, this self-connection exercise is, I would like to see it done universally. As a teacher, I never did it in my classrooms, but I sure wish I had. And just at the beginning of each class, just get us all centered into ourselves.
Yeah.
And looking after ourselves. It's so simple, and the students can lead it. It doesn't have to be the teacher. It just,
Amen. That's a beautiful.
just wonderful, simple thing to do in everybody's life.
That's a beautiful image.
Right, from your mouth to God's ears, sweetie. I know in the projects that we have here on Maui, that is a big part of it, right in the beginning to do that. And I'd love to see that happening more
Yep.
all around the world.
I share that aspiration.
Mhm.
Thank you, Siva. Anybody else like to share anything? Great. Okay, so that means we get to have more time for practice. So next question is, this is our, oh, go ahead, Siva, you have one last thing to say?
I want to respond to what Jory just now said. She said, from your mouth to God's ear. You know what? Besides studying NVC, I've been studying Kabbalah, and I see the infiniteness of all things. And I see myself as just part of that infinite, Ein Sof, that never ending infinity. And just for all of us, we are part of that infinity, and just plug into the oneness. So that's a different view of from my mouth to God's ear.
Yeah.
I'm sort of generalizing it and opening all of us to our eternal connection.
Yeah. Thank you, Siva. Thank you. It's like a little mini self-connection exercise there. Thank you. Okay, so we've been covering, so far we've touched on 3 of the skills of the what we call the Pathways to Liberation matrix of self-assessment. My neighbor just decided to mow the grass. That's convenient. Get up and shut my door here after I give you the first question. The first skill that we covered was presence. So those of you who are here for presence, you can probably more easily do this exercise than if you weren't here. But I think everybody knows what presence means to you. So if you were going to write down 3 main points about presence. So if someone on the subway or bus or in a cocktail party or whatever said, what do you mean by presence? And you wanted to just share 3 main points about presence. Write down what those points are for you. What are the 3 most important parts of presence for you? Just write them down into the chat or into your own notes if you don't want to share. It's up to you. I'll read a few of these and might stimulate more people to come up with what presence means to you. Intention to connect in the here and now. Calming myself like when I've been stimulated. Energy, positive, calm. Grounded in the body, awareness of the body, awareness of thoughts, openness, beingness, connection, listening, focus, openness, curiosity, awareness of the moment, being in the now, openness, allowing, body breathing, awareness of one's surroundings, curiosity, aliveness, awareness of something unifying, openness to flow, attention, being in the now, connecting with self here and now, taking a moment, letting go, ego reduction, giving full attention to the speaker, breathing, awareness, and grandstanding, which I think is probably a strange translation from the Japanese, but it probably means, my guess is being really centered. It's about bringing attention back when you sense it's not there. Awareness of my needs and the others. Wow, it seems like you guys really got a great handle on presence, centered clarity and communication. So now shift your attention to the second skill that we covered, observing. Again, just imagine that someone says, hey, what's this thing about observing? What do you mean? Observing, what are the 3 main points for you about observing? without judgment. Non-judgmental awareness of things, allowing what is happening, hearing, seeing, speaking truth, awakening, speaking with neutral words about what might be shared experience. What exactly are my senses seeing, hearing, touching? What I see and hear, only what my senses perceive. Curiosity, using all the senses, accepting, clearing the mind of distractions so that you can sense what it is you want to observe. Blank, letting in, watch, perceive without judgment, seeking clarity, respecting, detachment from expectation, in the moment, reflecting, perceptivity, communicating, and non-attachment, sensory perceptions, here and now, being. What the camera can record in visual and audio. Avoid stories, sensing via hearing, etc. Making a conscious notation of what you are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, etc. Great. I love it when I get to see how you have integrated it and put it into your own words, stripped of embellishment or description. It's just a description: personal, social, and cultural observation. 3 different layers of possible observing. So the next skill that we covered last week, we started exploring feelings awareness. Feelings awareness. What comes up for you about feelings awareness? If we're going to try to boil it down to half a dozen words or so, what are the 3 main points about feelings awareness? From the heart. Somatic experience and emotion. To be able to connect to the energy of the feeling in one's own body and stay with the story that creates it. And not stay with the story that creates it. Ground into bodily sensations, being with feelings and sensations. Aware of sensation, awareness of emotion, and the need under the emotion can be layered, authentic, natural. Taking a 0-step moment to identify how your body feels. Locating it in the body, heart response connected to experience in the moment. Sensations, emotions, feelings, and felt sense is the key. Self-connection, self-listening, body attunement, locating it in the body, a heart response. Oh, I did that one already. Sorry. Identify physical sensations as they relate to emotions. Great. Noticing in your own body sensations, emotions, and feelings. I'm grateful for this review and to see how you've already integrated awareness of these 3 skills in your life. We're going to expand on what you have already learned so far. And hopefully, if you haven't been here the last few weeks, hearing these reflections will support you in your learning and your growth. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Let's see if I can find the right screen to share. There it is. Oops, wrong one. Yeah, that's it. So forget about that. So today we're exploring feelings, awareness, and needs consciousness, taking the next steps. And I love this image here that was provided to me by my friend Kenneth Enright, who's a certification candidate up in, I believe he's in the Seattle, Washington area, somewhere like that. And he made this really cool deck of cards for the Matrix. And we've been playing around with how we might be able to use these cards. And one way is just to use these images for seeing what gets evoked in us. And so for the next few minutes, I want to talk a little bit about one of the most important for me key distinctions that Marshall identified about nonviolent communication. So if you've never heard that phrase before, key distinctions or key differentiations, or KDs, this is a list of about 25 different concepts that are usually paired to make a distinction between one way of being in the world and another way of being in the world. One worldview and another worldview might be another way of looking at it. And so one of these key distinctions is stimulus versus cause. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and talk around it, and then give you a chance to have an experience around it. So last week we talked about when you observe something in the world, it will have an impact on your nervous system. So that's the stimulus of our experience. We perceive, in other words, we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, and then our body reacts. It doesn't require any thought for our body to react to the stimuli that we experience. So for example, if you hear a startling loud noise, you'll have a startle response automatically. If someone taps that magical point on your leg will automatically just reflexively pop up. There's no thought required for those kinds of reactions from what we perceive. And the reaction that we notice takes the form of a sensation in the body. So when we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something, our body reacts and we experience that as a sensation. So thinking about that moment when you might have been startled if someone sneaks up behind you on Halloween, just finished Halloween here in the United States, and they go boo, and you get frightened. We experience that as a sensation in the body. These are like so deep in our neurology. Even newborn babies will have these reactions to stimuli. So for example, if you put a really bright light in a newborn baby's eyes, their pupils will contract. They might even try to contract their whole body. And so for example, let's imagine that you're walking in the forest and you're really grooving on the beauty around you, the bird song and the smell of fresh air and that scent, that luscious aroma of a forest and maybe the warmth of the sun on your body and the dappled sunlight. You're just really in that present moment, just observing. And then suddenly ahead of you, about 10 feet, you notice something kind of coiled up. It looks like a snake. And immediately, even just probably doing this as an imagination, your heart rate might go up a little bit, your energy might go to your legs, you might feel like running away, and so forth. So we see this snake, and then our body reacts, but then maybe we pause and we get really curious, and then we find out, we look more closely and we see, oh, that's actually not a snake. It's a vine, it's a dead vine that has fallen onto the path. And then when we see that, our body will respond in a different way. So last week, as we explored these sensations, we talked about sensations, I invited everyone to, in small groups, to come up with a list of sensations. And so this is what you guys came up with. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I guess, let's see here. I guess not. Anyway, this was what you guys all came up with as your list of sensations. There's my Zoom. A lot of, and this was, the bigger the word is, the more often it was reported. So notice that there are a lot of cold people here last week. People that were experiencing the sensation of cold, often related to their feet. There was tension was pretty high on the list, tightness, pain, stomach pressure, heaviness, peaceful. So this is what you guys came up with. It was one of the most deep and inspiring sensation lists I've ever seen. So thank you for helping me to create that graphic. I'll leave it up there for just another moment so you can savor it. Okay. This will eventually go into the notes that are on the website too, so you'll be able to use that for your own experience if you like. So what comes up for you as you see this list of sensations? Who'd like to share something about what comes up for you when you see that list of sensations, especially if you haven't spoken yet? Love to hear different voices. Anything alive in you as you connect with what we did last week or the idea of sensations that we've covered so far? Go ahead, Sarah Joy.
Well, I had a lot of empathy for people who were cold, and I was one of those people too. But also it was really fun seeing it all in one heart and knowing that we're all here despite of what we're feeling if it's negative and with what we're feeling if it's positive, learning the same thing. So thank you for putting that together. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you for participating, sharing. Savitri.
Yeah, when I was asked to look into the sensations, I found it kind of very limiting because I had a larger expanse of feelings and I was not able to connect to the sensations much. I mean, it was I had very few words to express my sensations, but the feelings are much more richer and more wider and expansive.
Interesting to notice that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I share your experience. That's why I actually wanted to create this list, was to support me in having more awareness, an ability to experience and name my sensations. This is going to be a really important part of the skill of self-empathy as we continue to stack our skills on top of each other. Anybody else have a sharing before we move on to the next piece? Oops, I'm trying to lower your hand, putting the wrong button. There you go. Okay, so let's carry on then. So can anybody think of another kind of a stimulus other than the world? That's what we've been talking about so far. What we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. That's what I mean by the world. But can anybody think of another kind of stimulus other than the world that can have an impact on your nervous system? Yeah, Sarah Joy.
Intuition.
Intuition?
Yeah. Like if you're walking across the street and then suddenly you feel like somebody's watching you or following you or something like that. You have an intuition and then you have to decide what to do with that.
Yeah, okay. And Deborah?
I think our own thoughts can affect our body.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was the thought that I was heading for. Shiloh, what were you going to say?
Memories.
Say it again. You broke up a little bit.
Memories.
Yeah, memories, exactly. Memory is another form of thought. Exactly. Joan?
Well, it's another form of thoughts, but I start telling myself a story and
Yeah,
I react to the story.
yes, exactly. Thank you. And Francesca?
Could be thought and self-criticism.
Thoughts and so, yeah, thoughts, especially self-critical thoughts. Those can be really, really impactful on our nervous system. Jennifer?
I was just going to challenge what you said a moment ago, Jim, about memories being a thought, because memories can be held in your body, may not be a thought.
I suppose that's true. I think you're right. There's something like a kinesthetic memory. I think we can have memories that are related to all the sensory systems. We could have images that are memories. We could have stories that are memories. We could even have like smell can really evoke memory and can be stored in memory. It may be one of the most ancient parts of the brain. So I'm in harmony with what you say. Tanya?
To piggyback on what Jennifer said, I think there's the nonverbal stuff that's sitting in our amygdala that that remains unnamed, but it really drives our triggers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Beth?
Yeah, I picked up on that. And I'm also thinking, ancestors, we inherit our ancestors' memories.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And so do the animals,
yeah,
obviously.
Yeah. Missy?
Hi, everyone. It's my first time here. Really, so glad to be here. And my thought when, Jim, you said the world for see, hear, touch, taste, smell. And for me, I have such a stimulus reaction and sensation to my dreams.
Yes.
Waking my dreams. So I'm like, well, maybe the waking world and the dreaming world, or maybe I didn't know how to insert that, but I wanted to.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I kind of glump all these things that everyone has listed. I clump them into the simple, overly simplistic label thinking. And I know that that's way too general and nowhere near as specific, but I love it when I can make it simple for my little brain. So that's what I call it, is thinking. But I'm actually intrigued by the notion of intuition. And I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more and find out how that might fit into this, because I'm in harmony. I get that for me is almost like another class of sensation or feeling in my body. And I'm curious to explore that more. Daisy? If you're talking, Daisy, we can't hear you yet.
Yes, thank you. It just took me a sec to unmute. I love what's being said. I raised my hands because I wanted to say hello and feel the connection of the group, but just hearing the sharing about memories and how they can be ancient and not even from our body. And I just think it's incredible. And it makes me think about how we really are these dimensional beings. And I do feel like, sometimes I have a Tyrannosaurus Rex in me. Sometimes I have a dolphin. Sometimes I have an elephant. Sometimes I have a human. And I want to celebrate and all those parts of me and be a full and complete human and lean into those parts.
Sweet. Thank you. Glad all of you came today. And I like that, thinking that there's a dolphin inside of me living here next to all the pods that are out in the ocean, and the whales are on their way. They'll be here in another day or two. So that's always an exciting part of the year here in Maui. Holly?
Well, somebody had mentioned lyrics and songs, and it just occurred to me that just music itself with no lyrics, no words, just the music itself creates feeling. Yes, it really does stimulate feeling. And that for me would be kind of coming into that channel of, well, for me, music, as a drummer, I experience music not only through my ears, but through my whole body with the beat, just the vibration in the whole body. So for me,
And music sometimes even has color to it for me when I'm in the right mood. So yeah, kind of a multi-dimensional experience. And Juliana?
Traumatic experiences, Jim. Traumatic experiences can really be come up. They can be stored and come up at any moment.
Right. In other words, we might be affected by thoughts that we don't know that we have.
Yeah.
Because they're below the level of our conscious awareness, which in my experience, and don't believe anything that I say or that Jory says, trust your own experience. But in my experience, I'm mostly unconscious. It's been borne out by some of the neuroscientific research that I've been studying. It says that in any given moment, we're bombarded by millions of bits of data that our brain is constantly taking in, and we're aware of about 24 bits per moment out of millions. So we're mostly unconscious. And we're driven by that unconsciousness sometimes. Yeah, Juliana?
Our perceptions and interpretations, way of looking at things.
Yeah, yeah. Interpretations is what I'd put in that classification of thoughts. So let's have one more. Deborah, go ahead.
I just want to reflect on what you said about the unconscious aspect of what we are. And it seems like it's a necessary protective mechanism, because until we reach a more enlightened level of beingness, we wouldn't be able to respond very well consciously to everything that we were bombarded with.
Yes, it would be overwhelming, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Overwhelming. In fact, to give you an example, just at the level of perception, of the level of sight, we see a fraction of a percent of all the electromagnetic spectrum because of the limitations of our particular neurology. We have most of us have 3 cones in our head, in our eye receptors, and so we see colors based on 3 different inputs. There are animals, bees, for example, and a species of shrimp that have 16 different kinds of cones. So they actually have more than 5 times as many cones as we do. I wonder what the world looks like to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
here
I'm seeing something in the chat from Minako in Japan, who really doesn't have the English voice to express so easily. So I'm going to read what she wrote. Our dear Japanese friend writes, what are the 3 points of presence? Breathing, awareness, grounding. Thank you for the information. And then she says, just the other day, I encountered a situation where I just couldn't connect with myself. I realized later that it was a reaction to trauma. But when I remember the experience, my body still reacts with fear. I'm trying to figure out what I would wear in a spur of the moment, unpredictable situation. Breathe, breathe. It was all I could do.
Thank you. Thank you, Minako. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little experiment to test out whether in your own direct experience, your thoughts can influence your feelings. So think of one of your favorite foods. And remember the last time that you ate it, or imagine eating it soon in the future. What do you notice about your feelings? Just notice. Another little experiment. as far as I can tell, we humans have like a deeply ingrained habit of thinking in terms of us and them. When you think of them, however you define them, how do you feel? How do you feel when you just bring an image of them into your mind? Then on the next breath, invite you to let that go and think of us. When you think of us, however you define us, how do you feel? So, anybody want, I have time for a couple of brief reports. Anybody notice anything, especially if we haven't heard your voice yet?
ありがとうございます。サポートを求めたいんですけれども、これに答えたいんだけど、ひかりさん通訳してもらってもいいですか？
いいですよ。
はい、ありがとうございます。私は果物を食べることをイメージしました。
Minako imagined she's gonna eat some fruit.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. そしたらとてもみずみずしい満ち足りた感覚と幸せを感じています。
When she imagined, she feels it's so juicy and like the moisture surrounded her to feel satisfied with the perceptions.
なんか違った視点でそこにつながれることを教えてもらいました。ありがとうございます。
So when she really thought about how she could connect the sensations, she had a really good exercise from you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Minako. And thank you for translating for us, Aiko. Go ahead.
No
Sterling.
problem.
I would like to share something regarding us and them, if that's all right with the group.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's talking? And then we'll hear from Sterling. I can't tell who's talking yet.
It's Daisy.
Okay, go ahead, Daisy.
Okay. I was in a chanting class and I wanted to share the way that they kind of explained what I think about us and them. Is the us is like this. She was explaining the right hemisphere of the brain. So it's like this, us is like this bigger picture, intuitive, flowing brain, but it not only expands, it also moves inward. And then them, I think of this energy that just goes out and it's sharp and it doesn't radiate, it doesn't move everywhere, it doesn't engulf. It's targeted and it moves in one direction.
Nice.
And it's forceful rather than one that's just like warm and oozing and reverberating.
All right, thank you. Thank you for highlighting the difference there. Sterling, then we'll finish with Darcy. So we have time for practice.
Fruit. What came to my mind was blueberries. But lately I haven't been enjoying my blueberries, but I have a memory of picking blueberries on a family outing and being under the bushes and picking them and eating them, and you don't have to pay for the ones that you eat. It was just a wonderful experience. And I think I eat the experience when I eat blueberries.
Oh, yeah. Love that. Thank you. And Darcy?
I have been pondering this question for quite some time about whether feelings follow thoughts or thoughts follow feelings. And I've concluded it's both simply because of what you've discussed tonight about stimulus. Yeah. You know, that, feelings just appear, based upon the stimulus. And then the thoughts do contribute to how we feel. So I'm very happy to have some more verbiage around my philosophical thoughts about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, things are happening so fast. You know, usually when we think of cause and effect, it's like one thing happens and then another thing happens. It's too simple of a model for how our brains and how life is, because everything's always happening. And so that's just so so difficult sometimes to tease out cause and stimulus, cause and effect. We'll get a little more practice later and see if we can narrow in on one clue here. But in the meantime, I want you to consider the question, who needs what? Who needs what? If you were going to, if I was asked to describe what nonviolent communication is to somebody and I only had 15 seconds to explain it to them, I'd say NVC answers the question, who needs what? So as you consider the idea of needs and what you need, I'd like to invite you to go to a breakout room for about, again, for about 12 minutes, 11 or 12 minutes. And in the breakout room this time, the idea is that you make a list of the things first that you need to survive. What do you need to survive? Put it into the chat. That's the first question to be thinking about. And the second question is, what do you need to enhance your life? Okay, so those are the two questions you'll be answering in a small group. I imagine it'll be much more of a brainstorming kind of a thing rather than a turn-taking thing. And the idea is that one of you in your small group will take notes, and like you did last week, and that you will take notes in such a way that there's only one need or phrase per line. Last week I got some that were like separated by commas, so I had to kind of do a lot of work to make that little chart. I'd like it to be easier for myself this week. So just make one, like a column of words that describe needs. And then whoever the secretary is, when you're done, you can email it to me, and I'll put my email address into the chat here. And I'll make another one of those really cool word clouds for to show you next week. So we'll do this again for a total of 11 minutes. I'll have to do some adjusting because some people have come and some people have gone. And so the idea again, choose a secretary or a reporter or a recorder or whatever word you want to use. And then just make a list answering the questions, who needs what? What do you need to survive? And what do you need to enhance your life? Recording back on. Save myself some editing. And everybody's gonna zippity-doo-dah back.
These are my people.
All right. Okay. So please, please the secretaries to email me at nvctrainer@gmail.com. If you happen to be in the either the Mandarin speaking or Japanese group, no need to translate. I think it'll be really cool if we have Japanese characters and Chinese characters in our needs wheel when I show it to you next week. And so go ahead, Siva, you have a question or something you'd like to say about the small group?
This is hard to believe, Jim, but I think this was the most important lesson of my life.
Oh,
really? I mean, like, first we made a list of those absolute essentials for life. And I've done this many, many times, but then the second list of, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have for, you know, just for humanity. And to have a distinction between the two lists. For me, it's so clarifying. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad it contributed to your clarity. Anyone else have any reflections on this exercise?
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we were talking about these essentials and there was connection. Then we were thinking maybe we can live without connection. But for me, still connection is essential for survival. And when we have more depth of connection or quality of connection, it's enhancing life. So I was thinking some of the needs or most of the needs, some part, even minimal part, maybe we need for survival.
Especially connection, right? Us human beings, you know, my cat, I'm not quite sure sometimes whether my cat needs connection or not, but I know I need to connect with my cat and I need to connect with my wife. It seems essential to my survival. I'm not so sure it would be great to survive if I didn't have those enhancement needs also on the table. So thank you for pointing that out, Vega. Rob?
Yeah. And I just want to comment how intense it is at this time in our lives when we have less connection, and the world is really getting clear on how important connection is.
Yeah. Hi. It seems like we took this as a very serious assignment. And I didn't notice until quite late that it's like fun, enjoyment, you know, came very late. And those are key to me.
Yes. Yeah. That makes so much sense. Anybody else have anything you'd like to share?
Karen?
Yes, it seemed to me that this might be, well, if we were to just go with the two lists, what's survival and what's enhancement, that community was one thing that seemed to bridge the two lists. That it's hard to have access to what we need to survive and also to support the enhancement list is community. Because early stages of life, without community, we would die.
Yes.
And it's very hard in a crowded world for us to have any of the survival needs met without community providing that.
Absolutely.
So I see it as a bridge between the two worlds.
Absolutely.
If there are two worlds.
Yep, absolutely. Because again, human beings, I doubt that we're really unique among species because there are other community-oriented animals like horses and wolves and dolphins and whales. But community seems essential for our survival. There's no such, one of my favorite quotes from Marshall Rosenberg is, independence is an illusion. Independence is an illusion. We live in interdependence. We really require, yeah, thank you so much. And Francesca?
For an enhanced survival, it's, for me, in addition to other things, spiritual connectivity.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense too. Thank you. Beth?
Yeah, just listening to what Karen just said. I think we forget sometimes, but when everything that you pick up it has been made by somebody, you know, so we can't survive without other people. Yeah. Just when you think about it, every product has several people's contribution, the packaging, the manufacturing, you know, whatever it is, it's involved so many people.
That's right.
So yeah, we can't survive without other people, that's for sure. Or animals for that matter. That's plants, right. Definitely not plants.
It's one big, Martin Luther King had a line that was something about, somebody help me out with his quote about a web of interconnected, I have to look it up. It's such a beautiful way of expressing it. Maybe somebody will remember it. Jennifer?
Who did you say, Jim?
Martin Luther King.
Okay, I'll think.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I'm thinking about the Japanese soldier who holed up for how many, 40, 50 years after the Second World War in the Pacific. He survived on his own, but he also survived because he knew he was part of an army and he thought he was still part of the army and fighting. So his notion of community was there, even though he was actually physically surviving entirely on his own, or with the plants and animals, of course.
Yeah, interesting reminder. Thank you. I forgot about that story. I bet that happens at the end of every war, where there are these isolated pockets of soldiers who get somehow stranded. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now let's go into the next layer of practice and see. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, how about we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
That's a great
Martin
quote.
Luther King.
That's a great quote. Not the one I was looking for, but we'll give you partial credit, like the New York Times news quiz.
Jim, I just put it in the chat.
Okay, that's it. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Thank you. So there's an example of thoughts stimulating feelings, because it makes me want to cry. Thank you. Thanks for the support. So now think of, let's bring it more to the practical level now. Think of a situation in your life where your needs are not satisfied in the moment. Don't pick something at a level 5 like it's a tsunami. Think of something that's kind of on the narrow or the mild end of the spectrum. I mean, something that's a mild irritation, but a time where a moment in your life where you can pretty much bet that your needs are not satisfied, and write down a description of what that scene would look like. This will be a practice of the skill of observing. So for example, one of my neighbors, who I pick on a lot in this class, bless his heart, he likes to collect what I judge as junky cars. But the observation would be, my neighbor has a old Prius in the front of his yard that is missing most of its pieces and seems to be falling apart.
It has been there for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So notice how that's just what the camera could see. I had a little bit of my thinking there, but I tried to take responsibility for it. So write down an observation involving another person where your needs are reliably not satisfied. I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes while you do that. If someone has one and you're willing to be coached, so in other words, you're willing to have me guide you into making a more crisp observation. So if you don't mind being corrected, put it into the chat or raise your hand. Okay, go ahead, Holly.
All right, I had something happen tonight that was irritating me. I was in a meeting and it was a meeting that was involving where people needed to read this document that somebody had sent out to talk about a bunch of procedures and ways of handling situations. So this one particular person, in fact, a whole lot of people coming to this meeting where we're going to move forward with how we're gonna do this thing that we're doing has not read this document. They have
Okay.
not read it.
Great. So let's see if we can crisp it up just a little bit. Some people came to a meeting and they hadn't read the document that was the topic of the meeting.
Right. Well, the topic is that we should have read the thing so we can move forward with how we're supposed to do but they hadn't read it. So they're all asking all these questions.
I understand. So the expectation that you had that they would have arrived prepared, but the observation was they arrived unprepared, or they at least you understood that they hadn't read the document. You got some kind of information that let you know that they hadn't yet read the document. Maybe they said, I haven't read the document yet. Maybe you heard them say that. I don't know.
Yeah, I did hear them say that.
Yeah, so that would be the observation. I heard someone at the meeting say they hadn't read the document. Perfect. Okay, Rob, let's hear yours.
Yeah, my brother-in-law told me that he sent his life savings to somebody he met through the internet.
Oh, okay. All right, that's a pretty clear observation. There's only one little place you might sharpen it up, and it's a really nitpicky point, which is I heard my brother-in-law say that he did this rather than
yeah, that makes sense.
Because you might have misunderstood him. I mean, it's possible. It happens all the time to me because I'm distracted or whatever. I think I heard something, then I found out that it was not that.
Yeah, it's kind of a stimulating thing because he doesn't realize he's been scammed.
Right. You're scared. Yeah, you're scared. You have a reaction.
I am triggered. I am been miserable for a week and a half or something since I found out. And anyways, yeah.
My heart goes out to you and your brother-in-law.
Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, so that's the first step that you all did. Now let's stick with me here, Rob, for just a second. What needs of yours are not satisfied because of this observation?
Well, he doesn't respond to communications for my need for communication and connection and closeness and family and valuing, being valued, and just a whole so many just a need for understanding too, or
for understanding. Yeah, a raft of needs. Yeah. And I'm guessing that as you connect to those needs, that you're noticing more about the feelings that are alive in you.
Were there some thoughts that come up too? Because I was supposed to inherit some of this. He's 80 years old, and it was $700,000 he gave away. I'm like, what?
Oh my!
I'm like, Jesus,
So there's maybe another need. Maybe there's another need in there for protection, and maybe something. That to protect resources somehow, to preserve resources.
Well, there's something that comes out. There's a need to be soothed somehow or to calm down about this because I go to bed, I think about this. I wake up, it's the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
A friend today was very proactive. He filed something with the FBI and the social services in Detroit there. And I'm like, I don't think that's the way to go, but I don't know how to calm down is my thing. I don't know how to soothe myself.
Yeah.
Self-soothing somehow is eluding me.
Yeah. So there's another need for well-being, your own well-being.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's stick with it now. If you're ready, we're going way too fast for such a big one, but we'll try and see if it works. So, and you might need help. Everybody else can help Rob with this part because I'm about to throw him into the PhD end of the need pool. So what do you imagine brother-in-law's needs are when brother-in-law told Rob that he had done this? What's your guess about brother-in-law's needs? We don't have to guess right. We're just making an empathic guess about brother-in-law. What might his needs have been?
Just to touch his humanity.
Anybody got any guesses?
Sympathy,
Say it again, please.
sympathy,
Sympathy, yeah, maybe a kind of connection. Yeah, a quality of connection. Understanding is a guess, I see. Contribution, connection, belonging, support. To be
Tomato.
valued. What, Sudha?
To matter.
To matter. Yeah, there's a few people that have put that in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, and
Maybe embarrassment.
he might have been needing empathy. He might have been feeling embarrassed. Or maybe he liked this idea and he's feeling proud and he wants to celebrate. Don't know. Rob has a better handle on it because he was there present at the other end. Minako guesses to be listened to. Reassurance that it's a good idea. Maybe he's needing some reassurance. Sterling makes the guess.
So Jim, I'm sorry, I'm lost. Is this what my brother-in-law is needing and feeling?
Yeah, we're trying to make some
Oh,
guesses about what's going on in brother-in-law. Exactly.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
would have motivated this? What his needs were that brought this forward?
Yeah, it's funny. I figured that he has a need for autonomy and to do what he thinks is right. You know, a little bit jackal there, but it's his money. You know, he doesn't want to confer with anybody else, and but it's too bad he wants to be in fantasy instead of reality, which is odd. You know, where he's off.
Yeah, so you notice you like have a need. You too have a need for also for shared reality, or
Yeah,
quality
definitely.
of connection like that. Yeah. So notice.
Yeah.
So notice. Let's put that aside if you're willing for just a minute. Notice what we did here, because you're about to go to a small group and do it. And Siva, you can stick here with me rather than go into the small group if your question is still alive. But first, we started with the observation. And we got some support in making the observation as clear as possible. Second, we connected with the needs of the person impacted by the other person's behavior. What were the needs of the person who was impacted? And that's empathy, by the way. We're empathizing with the person who's making the report about their observation. And then the third step that we played with is what Jory and I jokingly recall the PhD program, which is trying to make a guess about what motivated the person to do the thing that triggered us. Because the idea in NVC is that every behavior is motivated by a need. And so let's go back to the same small groups again. And you probably won't have time to go through all of them because we only have about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to reset the timer for 13 minutes plus 2 and talk about some of your observations and see. The most important thing is to see if you can empathize with the needs that are alive in either the person who was impacted by the behavior, or if you're ready to make some guesses about the person who behaved in the way that you didn't enjoy. Okay, so we'll be back together to debrief this in 15 minutes.
And was that about?
If you guys are, let me pause this.
That we are susceptible to getting taken advantage of.
That's a great question. And let's hold that for just now. And when I find those, I think that's a wonderful question to live into, and not such a great question necessarily to go too quickly to answer. But that for me is a step towards empathy, which is just to wonder what's going on in any person that you have compassion for. That's a really important piece.
Yep.
So let's hear from one or two other people about what you learned from this little breakout room. You can either raise your hand or put something in the chat. Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, let me first express what we were referring to. And it was my reaction to direct quotes, which I'm going to meet you and kill you tonight because you are a son of a, and all the, negative kind of mean-spirited talk without me coming up with all the quotes, because our political views aren't the same. Okay, the one that I think we got was a lot of the needs that I have are like the needs of these other people. We have a need for safety. And I want safety for those who think differently, that we respect their humanity. And they want safety, that their world's not going to be changed in ways that they don't like. But one that I came up with when one of the other people in the group said protection for those who are making those statements, that they need protection, it came to me that whether they're conscious of it or not, they may be wanting to protect their children's future. And I remember I have the mama bear reaction when my children were young and someone threatened my child. I'm ready to be violent for them. And I suddenly thought that could be playing into some of this if they care so much about the way they want the world to be like, that they're not just doing it for themselves, but they're doing it for their children's future. And that could make them extra violent. Yeah. So that was
thanks for the empathy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for exploring that and sharing your exploration with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you got time for one more? I will read what's in the chat here. Thank you to my group for giving me the chance to think from the other's perspective. That's really a great definition for empathy in a way. I really like that, to just kind of imagine what it's like to be from the other person's perspective. I can so relate to the human struggle. Sorry, have to go to work. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I got some more empathy in the group for this situation, but I'm still in a activated place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we need a boatload of empathy just to be able to get back to ground zero.
Yeah, and also, I know that that sometimes it's just we need to mourn. There's nothing we can do about something.
Yeah, that's right. Mourning.
And so we just feel sad, and we just learn to be
hate mourning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resistance is futile.
And mourning is painful. Nobody wakes up in the morning, at least nobody that I know, who says, "Boy, I hope I get the chance to experience mourning today." And yet, if I'm honest, it doesn't take me long. I usually read the news first thing in the morning, and there I go. I'm right into mourning pretty quickly right off the bat. And I try to balance it with some celebration as well. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's the piece for me, is when I'm really in a state of mourning, there's also a touch of celebration. There's obviously something that means a lot. And so it's holding that precious need or needs that are alive in that moment. And that mourning then becomes a form of celebration of those needs. Not a Yahoo, yay, but a touch into that level of humanity.
Margaret, and then we'll do our closing bits.
Just an awareness I had in the breakout group that when you take away all the story, judgments, opinions, the observation is quite neutral often.
Yeah.
So therefore, you may not get the reaction you hoped or anticipated from the other person, because they may not see it as anything hurtful or whatever, because and it made me realize why I do get into story often, because I'm trying to get the other person to see it from my point of view. But again, realizing that then is making me right and the other wrong. So it was very interesting.
Wow, I'm really glad to hear your exploration there. That's really touching for me. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the exercise.
Yeah. So we're at the end of today's class, but I wanted to end with sharing a brief 3-minute video, and then we'll stick around for your comments and stuff, Zohar, and anybody else that maybe needs some more empathy or we'll have a little after party in a few minutes. But I want to play this little video. It's 3 minutes long from Jeff Brown. He's the interim executive director. First, I'll play the video, and then I will share with you why I shared it with you. So first, the video. I'll get it going here.
Into our recent fundraising campaign for the Spanish VIT, the virtual intensive training. This was our first ever Spanish language only 9-day online training. And we had nearly 70 people participate in this training, including 35 of them, half, who required financial assistance in order to attend. Many of them were from South America and Central America, and were living in economies in which there simply is not the same amount of money available. Certainly not expendable income, as there are in other countries, such as the United States and most of Europe. So I'm very pleased to say that we had participants from Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Uruguay, as well as other countries. So I just wanted to say thank you for responding to the call. This is Jeff Brown. I am the interim executive director of the Center for Nonviolent Communication. I initiated this fundraising campaign because I wanted to see 2 things happen. The first thing is that we supported, as I said, 35 people who received tuition assistance, who paid anywhere from nothing to 10 or maybe 20% of our usual tuition rate. So I'm really celebrating we got to include this many people. Now, the other thing that we accomplished at the same time is that we kept the Center for Nonviolent Communication sustainable in the process. So we were able to cover our costs for organizing and hosting the training, pay the trainers a living wage, and the organizers come out even, basically, which is quite an accomplishment. And I just wanted to appreciate you and offer you gratitude and appreciation for helping us do this and for being part of it. You made a donation that made a difference. We were able to pull something off that we simply would not have been able to without our donors. There were 47 donors to this fundraising campaign. We reached and actually slightly exceeded our goal of $15,000 US. We received nearly 16,000, so we reached our goal. And I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of myself, our staff and board, and our entire organization. It was meaningful for me to offer this learning experience to people who speak Spanish as a native language without needing to be translated into or out of their language. It was designed and intended for them. And I'm really celebrating expanding our reach, expanding our community of people, in this case, the Spanish-speaking global community, who are learning and benefiting from the skills of nonviolent communication. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for being part of it, and take care.
So what Jeff doesn't know is that there was more than 47 donors, because you guys give us money every week to support this class. We put it into a special pot, and hang on a second, I gotta stop this other sound here. There we go. We take the money that you give us, we put it into a pot, and when a need arises, like this need for the Spanish VIT, we take the money you give us and give it back to CNBC. So you guys gave CNBC 20% of that $16,000. You gave $3,000. And so thank you so much for you supporting the Spanish VIT. I wanted you to hear it from Jeff, also that the gratitude, and I wish we could hear the voices of those 35 Spanish-speaking participants whose lives hopefully have been changed for the better by having the experience of that VIT. If you would like to contribute today to whatever the next need is that arises, please do so. And I'll put the link in the chat in just a moment, as soon as I get back to it. There's a couple of different ways that you can give to us. You can check out this website here, which is our website, Radical Compassion. There's a link there that you can give to us through PayPal. Oops. And also a link to give directly to CNBC. If you want to get a tax-deductible donation, you can donate directly to CNBC. So there's the two links in the chat for that. And of course, we also encourage you to buy my book, because that's also a fundraiser for CNBC. And with that, I think we're complete for today. I'm really glad that you all came. I feel really gratified. We made some huge steps on the journey towards emotional liberation today. Next week, we will transition to self-acceptance. We'll be covering the skill of self-acceptance next week. So we're gonna show you that it's okay to have those jackal thoughts. There's nothing wrong with you for being caught up in the system that we're caught up in. And we're gonna hopefully give you some tools to support your self-acceptance. So with that, we'll close the.
And I also put in the chat the link to Jim's book. If anybody wants to purchase more of those, that's another way to be able to give back, because all that money will go into CNBC.
Yeah, the name of the book is Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. Tori, anything you want to say to check out?
Thanks.
Thank you. And we'll end the call here, and we'll stick around for any questions, and we'll practice groups or more connection groups if you want to hang out with anybody. Thank you.